The massive space station Harmony floated in the neutral zone between star systems like a giant silver wheel spinning slowly against the black of space. Inside its gleaming corridors, beings from across the galaxy had gathered for the most important diplomatic event in centuries, the Intergalactic Peace Summit. Dr. Ben Torres walked through the main assembly hall, his brown eyes wide with wonder at the incredible sight before him. Creatures he had only seen in textbooks moved freely around the enormous chamber. The crystalline Zephyrians tinkled like wind chimes when they walked, their transparent bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns on the walls. Near the refreshment stations, the gaseous nebulans floated in containment suits that glowed soft purple, while the insectoid hive minds clicked and buzzed in perfect harmony as they communicated through rapid antenna movements. Ben adjusted his simple blue Earth uniform and checked his translation device. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, he had studied many of these species for years, but seeing them in person still amazed him. The summit's purpose was clear: form partnerships, create trade agreements, and build alliances that would benefit everyone involved. Already, he could see successful connections happening all around the hall. A group of plant-based Chlorans had surrounded a delegation of Stellas, beings made of living starlight. The Chlorans needed solar energy to thrive, while the Stellas could provide unlimited light. It was a perfect match. Near the observation windows, the aquatic Aquarians were deep in discussion with the ice-dwelling Glacians about water-sharing agreements. Ben smiled at the peaceful scene. This was what diplomacy should look like: different species coming together to help each other solve problems. He moved through the crowd, taking notes on successful partnerships for his report back to Earth. "Dr. Torres," called a voice behind him. Ben turned to see Ambassador Lisa Chen, the head of Earth's delegation, approaching with a concerned expression. "Ambassador Chen," Ben nodded respectfully. "The summit is going very well. I've documented at least 20 successful partnerships already." "That's good news," Chen replied, but her tone remained serious. "However, I need to warn you about something. There's a representative here that you should avoid." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Avoid? I thought this summit was about bringing everyone together." Chen lowered her voice. "The Sanguine Empire sent their queen. Queen Nyx of the Velothi people. They're also called the Space Vampires." Ben frowned. He had read about the Velothi in his studies. "Ambassador, with respect, the term space vampires is not scientifically accurate. The Velothi consume energy differently than most species, but they're not monsters." "Maybe not," Chen said firmly, "but they're dangerous. They feed on life energy, Ben. Other species fear them, and for good reason. I don't want any Earth personnel getting too close." Ben wanted to argue, but he knew better than to challenge the ambassador publicly. "I understand your concerns," he said diplomatically. Chen nodded and walked away to speak with other delegates. Ben watched her go, then looked around the hall again. His scientific mind was curious about the Velothi Queen. He had never met one of her people in person, and his research had raised more questions than answers about their energy consumption abilities. As the evening continued, Ben noticed something strange. While every other delegation was actively engaged in conversations and negotiations, one area of the hall remained consistently empty. It was a space near the far wall, beneath a beautiful mural depicting various star systems. The lighting there was softer, almost romantic, but no one seemed to want to occupy that section. Ben made his way closer and finally saw why the area was avoided. A figure stood alone by the mural, graceful and tall, wearing flowing crimson robes that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her skin was pale blue, like moonlight on ice, and her long silver hair fell in gentle waves past her shoulders. She carried herself with obvious nobility, but there was something deeply sad in her posture. This had to be Queen Nyx. Ben observed from a distance as delegates occasionally glanced in her direction, only to quickly look away and hurry past. Some even changed their walking routes to avoid coming near her section of the hull. The Queen seemed to notice this behavior, and Ben could see her shoulders tighten slightly each time someone deliberately avoided her. A group of Zephyrians approached the area where she stood, their crystal bodies ringing with musical tones as they discussed something in their native language. When they spotted the Queen, their conversation stopped abruptly. They turned and walked in the opposite direction without a word. Ben felt a pang of sympathy. Whatever fears other species had about the Velothi, Queen Nyx was clearly suffering from the isolation. She had traveled across the galaxy to participate in this summit, just like everyone else, but she was being treated like a dangerous animal. As if sensing his gaze, the Queen looked up and made brief eye contact with Ben across the hall. Her eyes were a striking violet color, and in them, Ben saw intelligence, dignity, and deep loneliness. She held his gaze for a moment, then looked away quickly, as if expecting him to turn and leave like all the others. Ben made a decision. His scientific training had taught him to question assumptions and look beyond surface fears. More importantly, his human sense of fairness was outraged by what he was witnessing. He began walking toward Queen Nyx's area of the hull. "Ben, where are you going?" called Dr. Sarah Kim, one of his research colleagues. "You don't want to go over there." Ben paused and turned back. "Why not?" "She's just standing alone." "She's a space vampire, Ben," Sarah whispered urgently. "They're predators. Haven't you heard the stories?" "I've read the scientific reports," Ben replied calmly. "And most of the stories are based on fear and misunderstanding, not facts." Before Sarah could argue further, Ben continued toward the Queen. He could feel eyes watching him from around the hall. Conversation seemed to quiet as other delegates noticed the human walking directly toward the feared Velothi ruler. Queen Nyx saw him approaching and straightened, her royal training taking over. She lifted her chin and composed her features into a neutral expression, preparing for whatever confrontation might be coming. Ben stopped a respectful distance away and performed a formal bow, the kind he had learned was appropriate when meeting royal representatives. "Your Majesty," he said in clear, simple words. "I am Dr. Ben Torres from Earth. I wanted to introduce myself and welcome you to the summit." The Queen stared at him in obvious shock. Her violet eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed unable to speak. When she finally found her voice, it was melodious and precise, with only the slightest accent. "You are speaking to me," she said, as if confirming an impossible fact. "Of course," Ben replied with a gentle smile. "Why wouldn't I?" Queen Nyx looked around the hall, noting the many pairs of eyes watching their interaction. "Because no one else has. Because they fear what I am." Ben followed her gaze and saw the worried expressions on faces throughout the room. He turned back to her with genuine concern. "That must be very difficult. You've traveled a long way to be here, haven't you?" The simple question seemed to catch the Queen off guard. Her carefully controlled royal mask slipped slightly, revealing the exhaustion and disappointment she had been hiding. "Yes," she said quietly. "Very far indeed." Ben gestured toward a nearby seating area with comfortable chairs arranged around a low table. "Would you like to sit down? You must be tired from your journey." Queen Nyx hesitated, glancing around at the other delegates who were still watching nervously. "Are you certain you wish to be seen speaking with me? It may damage your delegation's reputation." Ben considered this seriously, then shrugged. "My reputation will survive. Besides, I'm genuinely interested in learning about your people. I'm a xenobiologist, and the Velothi are fascinating from a scientific perspective." For the first time since Ben had seen her, Queen Nyx smiled. It was a small, cautious expression, but it transformed her entire face. "Very well, Dr. Torres. I accept your invitation." They sat down together, and Ben noticed how carefully the Queen positioned herself so that she wasn't facing any of the other delegates directly. She seemed to be trying to make herself as unobtrusive as possible. "May I ask about your journey here?" Ben began conversationally. "Which star system did you travel from?" "The Crimson Sector," Queen Nyx replied. "It took nearly 3 months aboard our fastest ship." Ben's eyebrows rose. 3 months. That's an incredible distance. Your people must have considered this summit very important. The Queen's expression grew more serious. "We did. We hope to find partners here, species willing to work with us despite the fears surrounding our nature." "And how has that been going?" Ben asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Queen Nyx's laugh was bitter but not unkind. "As you can observe, Dr. Torres. I have been here for 6 days. You are the first being to speak to me willingly." Ben felt a surge of anger at the unfairness of it all. "That's inexcusable. Everyone deserves to be treated with basic respect." "Do we?" the Queen asked softly. "When other species look at us, they see monsters who steal life force. They see predators who drain energy from living beings. Perhaps their fear is justified." "Is it?" Ben asked directly. "Are you a predator who steals life force?" Queen Nyx met his gaze steadily. "That is a more complex question than it appears, Dr. Torres." "Then help me understand," Ben said earnestly. "I've read the scientific papers about your people's energy needs, but I'd like to hear it from you." The Queen was quiet for a long moment, studying Ben's face as if trying to determine whether he was genuinely interested or merely gathering information to use against her later. "My people do consume energy to survive," she began carefully. "But not in the way the stories suggest. We do not attack other beings or drain their life forces. We absorb ambient energy from our surroundings, from starlight, from electrical fields, from the natural energy that flows through all living systems." Ben nodded, his scientific mind processing this information. "Like photosynthesis, but more advanced." "Yes, very much like that," Queen Nyx said, seeming surprised by his understanding. "When we are near our home sun, this process is easy and natural. But when we travel far from home, or when our sun grows weak, we must find other energy sources. And that's why you're here," Ben realized. "You need partnerships to help solve an energy crisis." The Queen's composure cracked slightly, and Ben saw real pain in her violet eyes. "Our sun is dying, Dr. Torres. It has been growing weaker for decades. Without new sources of energy or advanced technology to help us harness power more efficiently, my people will face extinction within 1 generation." Ben felt his heart skip a beat. This was far more serious than he had imagined. "Have you tried explaining this to the other delegates? Surely someone would be willing to help prevent an entire species from dying out." "I have tried," Queen Nyx said sadly. "But fear runs deeper than logic for most beings. They hear energy consumption and think only of parasitism and death. They do not stay long enough to learn about our civilization's achievements or our potential contributions to galactic society." "What kind of contributions?" Ben asked, leaning forward with interest. The Queen's eyes brightened slightly. "My people have developed extraordinary biotechnology. We can heal injuries that other species consider permanent. We have created methods to extend natural lifespans safely. Our understanding of energy flow through living systems has led to discoveries that could revolutionize medicine and biology across the galaxy." Ben's excitement was building. This was exactly the kind of breakthrough that could benefit everyone. "That sounds incredible. Have you documented any of these advances?" "Extensively," Queen Nyx replied. "I brought complete research files with me, hoping to share our knowledge with potential partners. But no one has been interested in reviewing them. I'd be very interested, Ben said immediately. But more than that, I think I know how we might be able to help each other. The Queen looked skeptical. Dr. Torres, I appreciate your kindness, but what could one human scientist do that entire delegations of other species could not? Ben smiled. You'd be surprised what humans can do when we put our minds to it. We're pretty good at solving problems that seem impossible. And from what you've described, I think Earth might have exactly what your people need. Queen Nyx leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time. What do you mean? Energy technology, Ben explained enthusiastically. Earth has become incredibly advanced at harnessing solar power, wind energy, geothermal systems, and other renewable sources. We've had to be, because we depleted our planet's natural resources centuries ago. Now we power entire cities with energy collection systems that could probably be adapted for space use. Solar collection in space, the Queen murmured thoughtfully. Yes, that could work. Our ships already have basic solar arrays, but they are primitive compared to what you're describing. And in exchange, Ben continued, your biotechnology could help solve medical problems that have plagued humanity for generations. It could be an incredible partnership. Queen Nyx stared at him in amazement. You truly believe this could work? Your people would be willing to share technology with the feared space vampires? Ben's expression grew more serious. I won't lie to you, Your Majesty. It won't be easy to convince everyone. Humans can be just as fearful and prejudiced as any other species. But we also have a history of overcoming those fears when we see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture here is saving an entire civilization while advancing medical science for everyone. You would advocate for this partnership? The Queen asked quietly. Even knowing it might damage your standing with your own people? Ben thought about Ambassador Chen's warnings and the nervous looks he was still receiving from around the hall. Then he looked at Queen Nyx's hopeful face and made his decision. Yes, he said firmly. I'll speak to my delegation tonight. I'll present the scientific case for why this partnership makes sense. And I'll make sure they understand that you're not a monster, you're a brilliant leader trying to save her people. Tears formed in Queen Nyx's violet eyes, though she tried to blink them away quickly. Dr. Torres, you cannot know what this means to me. For the first time in months, I have hope. Good, Ben said with a warm smile. Hope is important. And I have a feeling that this is just the beginning. Humans are stubborn when we believe in something, and I believe in this. Queen Nyx straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin with renewed dignity. Then I shall prepare a complete presentation of our technology and our needs. If you can arrange a meeting with your delegation, I will be ready. Consider it done, Ben promised. Tomorrow morning, we'll start changing minds. As they shook hands formally to seal their agreement, Ben noticed that the Queen's skin was slightly cool but perfectly normal. No energy drain, no sinister effects, just two intelligent beings making a deal that could benefit billions of lives. Around the hall, other delegates continued to watch nervously, whispering among themselves about the human who dared to befriend the space vampire queen. But Ben Torres had never felt more confident about a decision in his life. Tomorrow, he would begin the hardest sales pitch of his career. But tonight, he had given Queen Nyx something more valuable than any technology or resource, he had given her hope. Ben Torres walked quickly through the corridors of the space station toward the Earth delegation's private quarters. His mind raced with ideas about how to present Queen Nyx's situation to his colleagues. The soft lighting of the hallways dimmed automatically as the station's artificial night cycle began, but Ben felt more awake than he had in days. He reached the Earth section and used his access card to enter the main meeting room. Ambassador Chen was already there with the rest of the delegation, reviewing reports from the day's negotiations. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up when Ben entered, her expression worried. Ben, thank goodness you're back, Sarah said. We were concerned when we saw you talking to the Velothi Queen for so long. Did she try anything? Ben took a deep breath and moved to the front of the room. No, she didn't try anything. In fact, I learned something incredible that I need to share with all of you. Ambassador Chen set down her tablet and gave Ben her full attention. Go ahead, Dr. Torres. What did you learn? The Velothi aren't the monsters everyone thinks they are, Ben began. Queen Nyx explained their energy consumption process to me in detail. They don't drain life force from other beings. They absorb ambient energy from their surroundings, like advanced photosynthesis. Dr. James Park, the delegation's engineer, shook his head. Ben, even if that's true, it doesn't change the fact that other species fear them. Forming a partnership with the Velothi could hurt our relationships with everyone else. But what if those relationships are based on ignorance and prejudice? Ben countered. And more importantly, what if helping the Velothi could benefit humanity enormously? Chen leaned forward with interest. Explain. Ben activated the room's holographic display and began pulling up files he had downloaded during his conversation with Queen Nyx. Their son is dying. The entire Velothi species faces extinction within 1 generation unless they find new energy sources. But look at what they're offering in return for help. The hologram showed complex biological diagrams and medical data. The other delegates gasped as they saw the scope of Velothi biotechnology. Healing methods that could regenerate lost limbs, treatments for genetic diseases, life extension techniques that were far beyond anything Earth had developed. This is impossible, whispered Dr. Kim, studying the medical data. They can cure diseases we've been fighting for centuries. It's not impossible, Ben said. It's just different from our approach. The Velothi understand energy flow through living systems better than any species in the galaxy. They've used that knowledge to develop medical advances that could revolutionize healthcare everywhere. Engineer Park was examining the energy consumption data. Ben, if these readings are correct, we could help them. Earth's solar collection technology could easily meet their power needs. We could design orbital collectors that would give them unlimited energy. Ambassador Chen stood up and walked around the table, studying the holographic displays from different angles. Dr. Torres, are you suggesting we propose a formal partnership with the Sanguine Empire? Yes, I am, Ben said firmly. Think about it. We help them solve their energy crisis with our solar technology. They share their medical advances with us. Both species benefit enormously, and we demonstrate to the entire galaxy that cooperation is more powerful than fear. The room fell silent as the delegates considered this proposal. Finally, Dr. Kim spoke up. It would be dangerous politically. If the partnership failed, or if there were problems, Earth could be blamed for trusting the space vampires. And if we succeed, Ben replied, Earth becomes known as the species that saved an entire civilization while advancing medical science for everyone. Which legacy do you want? Chen returned to her seat and looked around at the other delegates. Let's vote. All in favor of arranging a formal meeting with Queen Nyx to discuss partnership possibilities? One by one, hands went up around the table. Even Dr. Kim, despite her concerns, raised her hand. The vote was unanimous. Very well, Chen said. Dr. Torres, please contact Queen Nyx and arrange a presentation for tomorrow morning. We'll hear what she has to say. The next morning, Queen Nyx arrived at the Earth delegation's meeting room accompanied by 2 advisors. She had prepared extensively, bringing detailed technical specifications, medical research data, and energy consumption projections. Ben introduced her formally to each delegate, noting how their initial nervousness faded as they began discussing the scientific aspects of the potential partnership. Queen Nyx's presentation was flawless. She explained her people's situation clearly, demonstrated their medical technology with holographic examples, and answered every technical question with precise, detailed responses. When she finished, the room was completely quiet. Ambassador Chen was the first to speak. "Your Majesty, this is remarkable. I had no idea the Velothi had achieved such advances in biotechnology." "Most species do not," Queen Nyx replied sadly. "They hear about our energy needs and assume we are predators. They do not stay long enough to learn about our achievements." Dr. Kim leaned forward with excitement. "The regenerative medicine techniques you've shown could eliminate half the diseases in our medical databases. How quickly could you teach these methods to human doctors?" "Very quickly," the Queen answered. "Our energy perception allows us to see biological problems that other species miss. But the actual healing techniques can be learned by anyone with proper training." Engineer Park was equally enthusiastic. "And the energy requirements you've described are well within Earth's solar collection capabilities. We could have prototype collectors ready for testing within 6 months." Ben felt a surge of satisfaction as he watched his colleagues' excitement grow. Queen Nyx was proving to be exactly what he had hoped, a brilliant leader with incredible resources to offer. "There is one more thing," Queen Nyx said hesitantly. "If this partnership moves forward, it would need to be announced publicly at the summit. Other species would see Earth working with the Velothi. This might affect your relationships with them." Chen considered this carefully. "Your Majesty, we appreciate your honesty. But Earth has always believed in doing what's right, not what's easy. If forming this partnership is the right choice scientifically and morally, then we'll deal with any political consequences." "Then you accept?" the Queen asked, hope clear in her violet eyes. "We accept," Chen said formally. "Let's draw up a preliminary agreement." The news of Earth's partnership with the Sanguine Empire spread through the space station within hours. Ben watched the other delegations' reactions with fascination. Many species seemed shocked that humans would ally with the feared space vampires. Some appeared worried, whispering among themselves about what this might mean for their own relationships with Earth. But something unexpected began to happen. By the afternoon, other delegations started approaching the Earth section with questions. They wanted to know more about the partnership, about what the humans had learned about the Velothi. The first to visit formally was a delegation from the Aquarian Commonwealth. Their leader, a graceful blue-skinned being named Coral, requested a private meeting with Ben and Queen Nyx. "Dr. Torres," Coral said in her flowing, musical voice, "we are curious about your partnership with Queen Nyx. The Aquarians have always been cautious about the Velothi, but we admit our knowledge comes mainly from rumors." Ben gestured for Coral to sit down. "What would you like to know?" "We face our own challenges," Coral explained. "Our ocean worlds are being affected by changes in our sun's radiation. Some of our coral reefs are dying, and our fish populations are declining. We have heard that the Velothi understand energy flow through living systems." Queen Nyx spoke up. "We do understand such systems. The problems you describe sound like energy imbalances in your ocean ecosystems. This is something my people could help diagnose and treat." Coral's eyes widened with interest. "You would consider helping us, despite our past avoidance of your people?" "Of course," Queen Nyx replied graciously. "The healing arts should benefit everyone, not just those who are already our allies." By the end of the day, Ben found himself in the remarkable position of facilitating discussions between Queen Nyx and 3 different delegations. The crystalline Zephyrians were interested in the Velothi's energy efficiency techniques. The plant-based Chlorans wanted to learn about biological energy distribution. Even the gaseous Nebulans had questions about energy storage methods. "This is incredible," Queen Nyx said to Ben as they walked through the station's observation deck that evening. "In one day, I have had more productive conversations than in the previous 6 days combined. People are curious, Ben replied with a smile. Once they see that other species are willing to work with you, their fears start to fade. But it was your people who made the first move, the Queen pointed out. Earth took the risk when no one else would. That required great courage. Ben looked out at the stars through the massive viewing windows. Maybe. But I think it also required something else. What? The willingness to see past our assumptions, Ben explained. Humans have made plenty of mistakes in our history because we let fear control our decisions. We've learned that the best way forward is usually to reach out instead of pulling back. 3 days later, the formal signing ceremony took place in the main assembly hall. The Terran Sanguine Accord established the framework for sharing technology between Earth and the Velothi. But it had become much more than a simple bilateral agreement. 5 other species had requested to join the partnership as associated members, creating the first multi-species cooperative agreement in the summit's history. Ben stood on the ceremonial platform next to Queen Nyx as Ambassador Chen, and the Queen prepared to sign the official documents. The hall was packed with delegates from dozens of species, all watching the historic moment. Dr. Torres, Queen Nyx whispered as the ceremony began, I want you to know that you have saved my people. We will never forget what you and Earth have done. You saved yourselves, Ben whispered back. You just needed someone to listen. The signing proceeded smoothly, with each species representative adding their approval to the agreement. When it was finished, Queen Nyx stepped forward to address the assembled delegates. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics, today marks a new beginning for the Velothi people. But more than that, it demonstrates what can be achieved when we choose cooperation over fear, understanding over prejudice. She paused and looked directly at Ben. The humans of Earth saw past the stories and legends about my people. They looked at our science, our achievements, and our needs with open minds. They chose to help when others chose to avoid us. Queen Nyx turned back to the broader audience. I challenge all of us to follow Earth's example. How many partnerships have we missed because of old fears? How many advances have we ignored because we were afraid to ask questions? The hall erupted in applause. Ben noticed that many delegates who had avoided Queen Nyx for the entire summit were now applauding enthusiastically. The change in attitude was remarkable. After the ceremony, Ben found himself surrounded by delegates wanting to congratulate him and ask questions about how the partnership had developed. But the moment that meant the most came when Queen Nyx approached him privately. Dr. Torres, she said formally, on behalf of the Sanguine Empire and all Velothi people, I name you an honorary guardian of our realm. It is the highest honor we can bestow upon a non-Velothi. Ben felt overwhelmed by the gesture. Your Majesty, I'm deeply honored. But I didn't do anything special. I just treated you with basic respect. Exactly, the Queen replied with a warm smile. In a galaxy full of fear and suspicion, basic respect and kindness are revolutionary acts. 6 months later, Ben stood in the control room of the first Terran Velothi Joint Energy Station. The massive solar collection arrays gleamed against the darkness of space, feeding power to distribution networks that could supply energy to dozens of worlds simultaneously. Queen Nyx worked beside him at the monitoring station, her technical expertise invaluable in fine-tuning the energy flow systems. The partnership had exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only were the Velothi's energy problems solved, but the shared technology had led to breakthroughs that benefited all the partner species. Incoming transmission, announced the station's communication officer. Multiple ships requesting docking permission. Ben looked at the display showing the approaching vessels. Ships from 7 different species were arriving to take advantage of the station's services. What had started as a desperate attempt to save one dying civilization had become a model for galactic cooperation. Dr. Torres, Queen Nyx said as they watched the ships dock at their station, do you remember what you said about humans being good at solving impossible problems? I remember, Ben replied. You were right, she said with satisfaction. But I think you solved something even more important than our energy crisis. What's that? Queen Nyx gestured toward the viewing window, where beings from multiple species were working together on the station's loading docks. You solved the problem of fear itself. You showed everyone that reaching out is always better than pulling back. Ben smiled as he watched a young Velothi engineer teaching solar panel maintenance to an eager group of students from 4 different species. I had a good teacher, he said. Someone showed me that the best partnerships happen when you're willing to see the potential in others instead of focusing on the things that make you afraid. The space station continued its slow rotation against the star field, a beacon of cooperation in a galaxy that had learned to choose hope over fear, understanding over prejudice, and partnership over isolation. And it all started because one human scientist decided to walk across a room and introduce himself to someone who was standing alone.